In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a seamless cover with pleats for a cut and sew foam cup. Let's get started.
To begin, we'll need our 3 foam pieces. And we'll begin by taping down the foam outer cup. You don't need to put lots of tape down, maybe just a couple pieces to hold it in place. Now I have the foam inner upper cup, and I'm going to align it as much as I can from the top of the vertical seam down towards the apex. And just put a piece of tape. Okay. Now if you put the inner lower cup down and start to align the seam, you'll see that you end up with 2 dart spaces. We want to close this dart space and add it just to the bottom because that's where we want to add the pleats or gathers. But as you can see, these dart legs are curved, so it will be easier to close this dart if we straighten them out. So I'm going to remove this piece for just a moment and align my ruler at the apex point and at the end of the dart. And I'm just going to draw on a line. And then I'm going to repeat that. Ooh, can't grab my piece. Repeat that for the inner lower cup piece as well. Let me move this off. Ooh, okay. So I'm going to draw a line from the apex point down towards the end of the dart. Okay. Now I will want to align these lines that I just drew. So put them right on top of each other. Okay, and tape them together. One piece where it overlaps, and another piece just to hold it down. Okay, so now we've closed off that dart space, and we have all this at the bottom. It's going to be pleated or gathered. So I can just draw a line at the bottom to connect it. Now, you'll want to add some extra just so that we know that we have enough to completely cover the foam. Oh, and you can see I'm about to run out of paper here. So I'm probably going to add, well, we could add another 1/2 inch just to be sure. And I'll have to add in some paper just in that little corner. So I'm just adding on another 1/2 inch. And no, this edge doesn't look pretty, but some of it will get trimmed off, so it's okay. And you'll want to add maybe another 1/4 inch along the sides and the armhole just to be sure that you have enough to cover the foam cup. Okay, there's 1/4 inch there. And 1/4 inch here. Now you have a couple of choices when it comes to the neckline. Oh, forgot to add along the armhole. Don't forget that. It's hard to see where the edge of the pattern piece is. Okay. Now, for the neckline, you can leave it as it is and do fold over elastic along the edge like it is in the pattern, or you can do a rolled edge for the foam. And I think that's what I'm going to do here. So that means you attach the cover, which will be this piece with all the gathers, onto the foam on the back side, and then you roll it over to the front. So there's just a nice clean edge along the neckline. There's no elastic or anything. So in order to do that, you'll have to add 1/2 inch along this neckline here. So a 1/4 inch to attach it to the cup, and then another 1/4 inch when we roll it over. And if you're doing metric, that's going to be, of course, 6 millimeters. 12 millimeters. Okay, add 1/2 inch. Oh, I'm going to have to add paper up there too. Okay, I added more paper. So I'm going to continue neckline, and then continue the armhole. And then finish drawing my line down here. Now, if you're going to do the rolled edge on the foam, you'll want to add an alignment mark notch, so like this, so that when you align the cup and foam pieces, you'll know where to line it up so that the edges don't get skewed and you end up too long on one side and too short on the other. So you can add one more alignment mark at the apex if you want to have some other way to orient your cup cover with your foam cup. So on the foam cup, this is where all the seams will come to a point and meet, and you could just mark this on the wrong side of your cup cover with a washout marker and align those 2 points and pin them together. I have just sewn the foam cup together, and I'm about to stabilize this neckline edge to prevent from stretching. And I just thought of a new technique to stabilize the neck edge, and I wanted to share it with you. Sometimes when I add the stabilizing tape, it still gets stretched out, and I've been trying to think of how to prevent that. So I've measured the neckline edge of my pattern piece, and I got 5 7/8 inches. And this is some stay tape by Dritz. I think it's just some stabilized tricot cut into narrow strips. And I have measured the neckline edge, oh, it might be too hard to see, and marked the 5 7/8 inch with a washout marker here. And when I go to my sewing machine, I'm just going to place the stay tape behind the foam cup and letting it stick out a little bit. This is 1/2 inch wide, so it's okay to have some to cut off. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm ending at that mark that I made on the stay tape, and I'm going to put the stay tape against the feed dogs so that it doesn't stretch out the foam, and we'll see if that helps keep the neckline from stretching out. So I'm going to go do that now. I have my foam cup with the stabilizing tape sewn along the neckline, and I now have my cup cover, which I cut from some bamboo spandex jersey. For the cover fabric, you'll want to pick something lightweight that will be able to make gathers or pleats along the bottom without creating a lot of bulk. So now it's time to attach the cover to the cup. And this might seem counterintuitive, but you're going to put the right side of the cover to the wrong side of the cup. And after we attach it, we'll flip it over, and then it will start to make more sense. So you'll want to align the marks that you made along the neckline and either pin or clip the fabric in place. I'm going to put my pin in parallel to the seam, and you should have some extra sticking out. You can see this flap sticking out. You want that extra fabric. That's going to help make sure that you have all of the foam covered once you turn your cover over. Okay, let's line this other edge and see it's sticking out beyond the foam cup, and that's a good thing. So now I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, straight stitch along the neckline, and then after I sew the seam, I'm going to want to crush the edge either with a serger or with some zigzag stitch so that we can make a narrower profile of the foam edge so that when we turn it, it won't be too thick and bulky. Okay, I have sewn my seam, and I have added some zigzag stitch to crush the edge of the foam. You can see it's much narrower now. And now we're going to turn the cover to the right side. If we've done everything correctly, we will have enough fabric to cover all the edges. So you'll just want to start smoothing the fabric, and if you wish, you could flip it to the wrong side here, just at the apex point. You can see that's the mark that I made on my pattern, and just smooth it over until it meets the intersection of the foam pieces. And I can put a pin in there if I really want to, make sure it's where I want it to be. Okay, so just begin smoothing along the armhole line and the side and the other side, and just keep all the excess gathers of the fabric along the bottom of the cup, and that's where we're going to create our pleats. So I'll come back once I have everything smoothed out. Okay, so my edges are pinned except for the bottom. I've made the fabric as smooth as I can. And before you start making your pleats along the bottom, you'll want to flip the cup over. Sometimes if you pull the fabric too hard, it can cause the cup to collapse, and you don't want that to happen. So you want to smooth the fabric, but not pull it so taut that it's making the foam collapse. So I'm going to do pleats. If you want to do gathers, you could just either sew by hand or by machine a basting stitch and then just pull the fabric into gathers. And but I'm going to make some pleats. So I'm just going to eyeball it a little bit. You could make it perfect if you really want to and measure each one. But something like this, I think, will be good. I'm going to do 3 pleats. I'm going to pin these in place. And before I sew it, I'm going to sew my other foam cup and cover and make sure that they both look even before I go and sew them down. So I'll come back once I've done that. I have both of my cups prepared now, and I put my pins on the side of the cover, but I realized that when I go to sew it, it will probably be easier to sew from the foam side so that you can make sure that you're staying within the seam allowance doing the basting stitch. So I might have to turn all my pins around, but it was easier to pin from this side. And I just wanted to show you what it would look like to do gathers. This is a different bra that I made years ago, and I did gathers along the bottom of the cups. This is a stretch mesh fabric, which was probably not the best fabric for covering the cups because you can see the stitching on the foam cups through it. So lesson learned there. But these are what gathers look like. I think the pleats will end up being a little bit flatter. So now I'm going to baste around the edges within the seam allowance of the foam cups. I have finished basting around the edges of the cups, and now I can trim away all this extra fabric and continue sewing my bra. And I haven't actually cut out the other pieces yet, and I wanted to share with you another trick. I am going to use this bamboo jersey for the cradle and the bridge, and since it is very stretchy, of course I'm going to have to line it with a very stable fabric. And instead of just cutting the pieces separately, this is some sheer cup lining, separately and then attaching them together, I'm afraid that the bamboo jersey is going to bag out a little bit. So what I'm planning to do is to use some temporary adhesive spray and just block fuse these 2 layers together, and just make a big piece of fabric of the bamboo jersey and the sheer cup lining together, and then cut it, and hopefully there won't be any stretching, and then I can just treat them as one layer, cover my seams with the channeling so that there's no raw edges. On the bridge I will have to cut a separate second piece just out of the sheer cup lining so that I can join them up at the top. But I'm going to try and avoid having some bagging out just because I'm using a very stretchy knit with a stable knit. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, I have all my pieces cut out now, and this is the bamboo spandex with the sheer cup lining attached to the back with the temporary adhesive spray. And that particular spray that I used from Sulky just evaporates, so you don't really want to fuse your fabrics together until you're ready to sew, because if you leave it for a day or two, you might find the fabric's not sticking together anymore when you go to sew it again. So you can just treat these pieces now as cup style D with the cut and sew foam cup. You just obviously won't be adding the fold over elastic at the neckline edge, and you can just continue sewing the bra down. So I'll be back when it's all complete. And here's the finished bra. From the outside you can see there are the pleats at the bottom of the cup and a nice rolled edge at the neckline. And if you look at the inside, everything has a nice clean finish. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.